Hi, boys and girls. Let me tell you a good story. Once upon a November 19th morning in the year 1924, in a small country community called Lakeland, Florida, a little baby boy was born, and his mom and daddy named him John Daniel. Well, for the next 18 years, little Johnny worked real hard at growing up. Now, for young Johnny, growing up meant lots of hot hours working on the farm in his daddy's pea patches. Well, right after young Johnny turned 18, there was another little baby born on the other side of town, and his mom and daddy had the audacity to name him Marvin Howard. I just imagined that young Johnny was kind of glad that someone in the family might be coming along to replace him as the official family pea picker. There wasn't anybody in the entire family at that time that could have ever guessed how little Johnny and baby Marvin would turn out. Well, boys and girls, this is their story. Let me tell you how John Daniel became JD Sumner, the world's lowest bass singer, and old Marvin, I'm going to tell you how he became Donnie Sumner. That's me. I'm JD's nephew.
I've had a wonderful life. The Lord's been so good to me. I've had a wonderful life. And if tomorrow I never see, if I had no more blessings in store, I'd never ask or wonder why. And if I died today, I could honestly say I've had a wonderful life.
Yes, sir. Looking back on it, I truly can say I've had a wonderful life. Some folks might tell you it started a little rocky, but I can tell you now, it turned out well. You see, when I was born, I had a 7-year-old sister, a 4-year-old brother, and a 2-year-old sister. And when I was 10 months old, our father was killed in a tragic accident, and our mother, unable to care for us, placed us all up for adoption. Now, a Pentecostal preacher and his wife, Russell and Nell Sumner, well, they adopted me, and they changed my name from Marvin to Donnie. I don't guess anybody in the family knew what my real name was, because all of my life they've called me Duck. Nevertheless, from that time until now, all the other folks I've known in my life have called old Marvin Donnie. Now, with my adoption, there arose an unusual situation. My family tree got all confused. I guess I should tell you about it, but JD's version is a lot better than mine. I've heard his version hundreds of nights, as he had introduced me as a member of the Stamps Quartet.
The next man in line is a young man that I'm proud of. He's my nephew. The strange thing about Donnie being my nephew is that his sister is my daughter. This came about because both Donnie and his sister, my daughter, were adopted. They were brothers and sisters, and they were adopted by my brother and myself. Donnie was adopted by my brother at the age of 10 months. Now, my brother wasn't 10 months, but Donnie was 10 months old. I adopted Donnie's sister at the age of 2.5 years old. Well, by Donnie being the brother of my daughter, that makes Donnie also my son. And by my daughter being the sister of Donnie, and Donnie being my nephew, that also makes my daughter my niece. Before that, they were our cousins. Their dad was the first cousin of mine, having been killed, and that's the reason that we adopted the 2 children. Now, the only thing that I can see will happen, and I can see it happening fast, is someday Donnie will be my granddaddy. But until then, make him welcome. Don Sumner, what do you say?
Well, that's Uncle Jake's story, and he always stuck to it. But now let me give you the real skinny on how it all came down. My 7-year-old sister Frida was adopted by my mother's mother. My 4-year-old brother Pete was adopted by my daddy's daddy. My baby sister Frances, 2 at the time, was adopted by my second cousins, JD and Mary Sumner. I was adopted by JD's older brother and his wife Nell, who at the time were also my second cousins. And I'm telling you, boys and girls, I haven't been right since. I woke up that particular morning and my oldest sister had become my great aunt, my brother had turned into my great uncle, my baby sister was a third cousin, and my second cousin was now my daddy. No wonder JD always said that I was going to be his granddaddy someday. Just don't know, it might happen.
As a boy, I dreamed of growing up, and the day I'd be a man. But I couldn't see through all the years and know the master's plan. But looking back on where I've been, I just gotta say, God's been good to this old boy, and he's kept me all the way.
Every little boy needs some big heroes, and I've been blessed to have mine. JD Sumner and Russell Sumner are two of the greatest men I've ever known in my life. Russell and Nell Sumner, who I call Mom and Daddy, unconditionally loved me, taught me, disciplined me, and have helped me become the man that I am today. And JD, well, all my life I idolized him, and I wanted to be just exactly what he was. And had it not been for Uncle Jake taking me under his musical wings, in all probability, I would not have known a life in the music industry. A man once told me, Donnie, the only reason you're in the Stamps Quartet's because JD's your uncle. You know something? He was right. I'm telling you the truth. It really has been wonderful having Russell and Nell Sumner as my mom and dad, and JD Sumner for an uncle.
One more time, let me proclaim it to all for what it's worth. God's been good and I've had a taste of heaven here on earth.
The first time I ever realized that we had a star in the family was in 1946. There was a group of guys over in Tampa, Florida, singing gospel music every day on WFLA, Tampa's most powerful radio station. They were sponsored by the Dixie Lily Milling Company, and they utilized the talents of Horace Floyd, Stacy Self, and a very young and good-looking lead singer, Jake Hess. And of course, my Uncle J.D. Sumner sang the bass. Stacy Self was the gentleman that hired J.D., and it sounds like young Uncle Jake didn't have anywhere to go except up, according to the story that Stacy Self tells.
I'll never forget that Sunday afternoon, the Sunny South Quartet was returning to town. And our bass singer said, fellas, this is my last day. And we panicked. We had a radio program to do every day at 12:30. We had concerts booked. We had no bass singer. I told the manager of the quartet, drop me off in Lakeland, and I'll go talk to JD Sumner and see if I can't get him to come and help us. Well, JD was driving a truck for a few country there in Lakeland. I went to his house late Sunday night, woke him up, and said, JD, we need a bass singer, bad. And he said, I'll talk to my boss in the morning, see what I can do. He called me the next morning. He said, I can do it. I'll go with you. He said, I'll be by to pick you up in a few minutes. He came by in an old Chevrolet car. Old Chevrolet car. And he picked me up and we started to Tampa to sing on our 12:30 program over WFLA. I prayed all the way that Chevrolet would make it. Well, it did, and we did. And from that day to this, gospel music has indeed been JD's life.
Oh, mercy me. That old Chevy was probably a far cry from the Cadillacs that JD always drove in his later years. Anyway, back to my story. We didn't have a television back in those days, but we did have a radio. And every day of the week, near noontime, regardless of what else I was doing, I would invariably run into the house and tell Mama to turn on the radio, 'cause I want to hear Uncle Jake. Every day they came on with the same song, and over the years it became one of JD's signatory songs. What I didn't know at the time was, as a teenager, JD had joined up with two girl cousins, Lola Mae and Margie, and with his sister Murtis, and they had sung the same song every Saturday for a couple of years on WLAK in Lakeland, Florida. They used it as the theme song for the Lake Wire Church of God radio program, and I have no idea what it sounded like, 'cause that was way before old Donnie was born. But I sure do remember the Sunny South's version. And when Uncle Jake joined the Blackwood brothers, one of the first songs they recorded was that song, Give the World a Smile. And boys and girls, I'd sit and listen to it over and over. And if I played it when we had company, I used to tell them, that's my Uncle Jake singing bass.
Give the world a smile each day, helping someone on life's way. From the paths of sin, bring the wanderers into the Master's fold to stay.
Help to cheer the lone and sad, help to make some pilgrim glad. Let your life so be that all the world may see the joy of serving Jesus with a smile.
I sure listened to a lot of Sunny South radio programs with JD singing that song. But a big break came to JD in 1947 when he was asked to join the Sunshine Boys in Wheeling, West Virginia. Jake Hess had just previously left the Sunny South Quartet to join a new group in Atlanta, Georgia known as the Statesmen. Well, with his buddy gone, the Sunny South Quartet wasn't quite as much fun as it had been, and furthermore, the Sunshine Boys were doing a lot of performances with the Statesmen. So JD readily accepted their offer and became a member of the Sunshine Boys, and with this change, his career was about to really take off. On numerous occasions, I've heard Eddie Wallace, the piano player for the Sunshine Boys, describe what it was like when he and Ace Richmond met JD for the very first time.
JD, you remember the first time Ace and I ever saw you. JD always has driven with the seat pulled right up under the dashboard. The fact that he's 6 feet 5 don't make any difference. I'm 5 feet 6 and he drives the seat closer than I do. Anyway, Ace and I were going to meet JD on Sunday afternoon. JD came driving up. He pulled up his knees up under his chin, turned and looked over that way. Ace said, "My Lord, that's surely not him." I said, "That's got to be. Nobody else can look like that."
Now, not long after Uncle Jake joined the Sunshine Boys, my daddy entered the ministry full-time, and we moved to Cleveland, Tennessee so he could further his education at a church training center known as Lee College. Now, Cleveland wasn't that far from Wheeling, and every once in a while the Sunshine Boys would come through Cleveland, and they'd always be in a big white Cadillac limousine, and when they'd come to town, they'd come over to our little house trailer to visit us. And every time Uncle Jake came over, it was like heaven to me. And on one of his visits, he gave us a copy of his first recording with the Sunshine Boys. It was the first record I ever owned. We didn't even have a record player. But my daddy's sister, my Aunt Bee, did have one. And she used to remind me often how I used to come to her upstairs apartment and listen to Uncle Jake's Atom Bomb song. And she'd tell me how I used to do the foomp sound along with my Uncle Jake.
Everybody knows about the atom bomb. Nobody knows the day my Lord will come. He's gonna hit like the atom bomb. When he comes, Lord, when he comes.
Soon the day of judgment will be going near. That will be the day you'll see my Lord appear. He will show his children how to find the light, lead them down the pathway that is straight and right. Jesus has more power than the atom bomb. When he hits, you'll know it and you'll surely run to the rock of ages there to hide away. And the times are coming on the judgment day.
Everybody knows about the atom bomb. Nobody knows the day my Lord will come. He's gonna hit like the atom bomb. When he comes, Lord, when he comes. God told Elijah he would send the fire, burn the world at his desire. Told brother Noah about the rainbow sign. No more rain,
but fire next time.
Everybody knows about the atom bomb. Nobody knows the day my Lord will come. He's gonna hit like the atom bomb. When he comes, Lord, when he comes. When he comes, Lord, when he comes.
Oh my, both the recording techniques and their quality have sure changed a lot since then, haven't they, boys and girls? I'm sitting here with a stack of old 78s, 33 1/3 RPMs, and I got a stack of reel-to-reel tape boxes. And anyone would be pressed really hard to find anything in there with high fidelity. But over the years, I've collected a room full of JD memorabilia. And I've noticed that over the years, I've collected Uncle Jake singing several of the same songs with 2 or more of the groups that he was a part of. Now, one thing that has amazed me is how much lower JD's voice got over the years. It has also been wonderful to notice the audio fidelity increase with time. And I have now my own studio, and it was interesting to me how I could come in and with the use of a computer, combine some of these same song, different group recordings. Here's what I mean. Let's take the song Swing Low Sweet Chariot and put JD's first old 78 with the Sunshine Boys together with his first long play solo record after he joined the Stamps Quartet.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Why don't you swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride? Swing down, chariot, stop and let me ride. Rock me, Lord, calm and easy. I got a home on the other side. Now Ezekiel got his ticket, had it in his hand. He was getting ready for the promised land. But then he heard the chariot coming down the road, and he just wanted to lay down that heavy load. Why don't you
swing, 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 swing? I've got a mother in the promised land. I don't expect to stop until I shake her hand.
Rock me, Lord, calm and easy. I got a home on the other side.
Sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
That chariot seems to have gotten lower through the years, didn't it, boys and girls? Anyway, it must have appeared to all of Uncle Jake's family back down in Lakeland that he had joined the Mafia, considering all the money he started sending home shortly after he joined the Sunshine Boys. Uncle Jake used to relate the story to me, but I'm going to let Eddie Wallace tell it to you.
We went to Wheeling, West Virginia, and up there we started working 7 nights a week. Well, JD had gotten in debt quite a lot because his old car had broken down, and Mary and the kids was in Florida, and he couldn't afford to get them up there. So he started sending every nickel that he made back home to his dad. After about a month of this, Mr. John called Ace one morning, and he said, "Ace, I need to talk to you." Ace said, "What's the matter, Mr. Sumner?" He said, "JD's been sending money down here like crazy." And he said, "I want to know what he's into up there." Ace said, "Well, Mr. Sumner, we're working every night in the week, and 2 days on Sunday." He said, "Yeah, but ain't nobody can make as much money as he's sending down here," said, "not honestly anyway."
In 1990, I had a studio in Destin, Florida, and I produced and recorded an album of old convention songs for JD and the Stamps. During one of our pre-production meetings, I remembered a song I had listened to when I was a little boy that Uncle Jake used to sing with the Sunshine Boys. I suggested that he put it on the upcoming album, and he did. Well, y'all are the first ones to hear Waiting for the Call with both groups at one setting.
Many years ago I found the Lord, making him my all in all I owe. Sweet is life while trusting in his word, waiting for the Lord to call. Waiting for the call. I'm trusting in the promises of Christ the Lord. He's my all in all, and he will lead the way according to his word.
till the shades of night on my life shall fall.
I will follow on, repeating our sweet story, waiting for the call.
feel so weak and small. Simple faith has kept me from defeat. Waiting for the Lord to call. Waiting for the call. I'm trusting in the promises of Christ the Lord. He's my all in all. And He will lead the way according to His word.
Till the shades of night
To earth descending
on my life shall
I will follow on, repeating life's sweet story, waiting for the call.
JD's voice sure got lower between those two, didn't it? When I was a kid in Cleveland, I thought that Uncle Jake's notes with the Sunshine Boys were the lowest notes that a human could sing.
Someday there'll be a great reunion in the sky. I'll meet old friends and loved ones in heaven. Daily I am striving now to reach that Christmas shore. Die no more.
I'm no more. I'm gonna walk down past my Savior. In God I'm gonna see the highway leading to my God.
Although it leads me through dark valleys and on mighty mountains deep,
I walk the straight and narrow path that Jesus said was for His sheep. I'm gonna serve my Lord and Master every day as long I go in front to let some weary pilgrim heavy loading when his last life is on the life is on. I'll rest with God and
soon the gates will click behind me of the sky in heaven, in that home beyond the dashing foam. Satan's chains no more can bind me, ever I'll lie up yonder, joyfully I travel on.
Oh, I am gay, not complain, on my way, although there may be some pain to bear. My Lord is ever so near, always giving hope and cheer and healing all my care. The bells of heaven are ringing, angels are singing to me, they're bringing welcome from this world, so up yonder, and I know I'll never wonder, joyfully I travel on. Better get right, better do right, better stay right. Better fight sin, try to help when lost is alive. Wait for the Lord, gain a reward that awaits you and me. Now as we go, surely we know heaven will see. Can't you see the faith sinners have met? Yes, He's the Holy One, don't you forget. Sinning won't pay. You better get on your knees and pray. There's a judgment day surely to come. He is beckoning everyone. Seek Him today. You better get on your knees and pray. You better get right, better do right, better stay right. Better fight sin, try to help when lost is alive. Count the cost to be lost, come to the light. Better get right, better do right, better stay right.
I'm telling you, boys and girls, I spent many of my childhood hours listening to those old 78s. Right about the time those old 78s came out, the Sunshine Boys also became a part of the WWVA Jamboree in Wheeling, West Virginia. And through their association with this jamboree, in 1951, they had the opportunity to meet the legendary Red Foley. Their friendship with Red increased, and before long, the Sunshine Boys found themselves recording with Red Foley. When the record came out, the A-side became a standard for both Red Foley and then later the Stamps Quartet.
There will be peace in the valley for me someday.
There will be peace in the valley for me, for Lord I pray.
There'll be no sadness, no
Oh, my Lordy,
no trouble I see.
There will be peace in the valley for me.
For me.
Well, I'm tired and so weary, but I must go along till the Lord comes and calls me away. Oh yes, well, the morning is bright and the lamp is the light, and the night is as fair as the day. Oh yes,
There will be peace in the valley for me someday. Yes, there will be peace in the valley for me. Oh Lord, I pray.
There'll be no sadness, no sorrow, no trouble I see. There will be peace in the valley for me.
The B-side of that same record was an old hymn recorded with a country flavor. I guess JD learned his part real good because he continued to sing it that way all the way to the final stamps.
Where could I go? Where could I go? Seeking a refuge for my soul. Needing a friend to help me in the end. Where could I go but to the Lord? Where could I go? Where could I go? Seeking a refuge for my soul. Needing a friend to help me in the end.
tell me
Where could I go but to the Lord?
It was the Foley project that caused Republic Studios to ask the Sunshine Boys to come to Hollywood and sing in a new Cowboy series that they had started filming. Their first picture was a movie called Prairie Roundup starring Charles Sterrett and Smiley Burnett. While they were out there, they also did 16 30-minute shorts for a theater series billed as the Durango Kid. Now let me tell you about JD and the movies. I know a lot more now about movies than I did back then. You see, my daddy was a Pentecostal preacher, and we didn't believe in going to the movies. But JD was my uncle, he was in a movie, Uncle Jake was my hero, and even if they turned me out of the church, somehow I had to go see Uncle Jake shoot 'em up on the big screen. Well, I finally got my chance. Daddy was pastoring in Bradley, Florida, about 20 miles from Grandmama's house in Lakeland, Florida. I was taking piano lessons in Lakeland every Saturday, and we would go over to Ms. Robinson's house for a lesson, and then after that, we would always go to Grandmama's house for the afternoon to eat supper. Now, just down the street from Grandmama's house lived a cousin of mine named Rudy. And as kindly as I can state it, folks, Rudy was somewhat less than Pentecostal in faith, and furthermore, the old boy went to the movies. One Saturday I was over there and old Rudy came over really excited like and told me that Uncle Jake's movie, Prairie Roundup, was playing down at the old Polk Theater there in Lakeland. And he told me he was going to go see it. He finished his proclamation with, "Come and go with me." I said, I can't. If Daddy finds out, he'll spank me. I guess I was comforted with Rudy's response. He won't ever know, because I said okay and jumped on the handlebars of Rudy's old bicycle and we headed off for the Polk Theater. Now, for the first time in his life, the preacher's kid found himself right smack in the middle of a theater. I had no idea what to expect, but I can tell you the hair on my head stood up when the lights went down and that theme music started playing. Man, I felt like a grown feller in the Radio City Music Hall sitting there listening to the New York Philharmonic. I couldn't believe how big those people were on that screen. And names, they were flashing all over the screen, and I had no idea who any of them were. The name Charles Sterrett didn't mean nothing to me. And Smiley Burdette sure didn't ring a bell with me. I didn't know any name on that screen, but then all of a sudden I saw it, the Sunshine Boys, and I knew that that was my Uncle Jake. Now, I've been known to play cowboy in my time, but I'm telling you the truth. I never saw as many horses, as many cows, or heard as much shooting as I did in the first few minutes of that movie, and I loved every minute of it. I kept waiting for Uncle Jake. It didn't seem like he was ever going to get on the screen, but I don't think I'll ever forget when I finally saw him come riding out through a bunch of woods chasing some stray calves. I don't guess the producer of the movie thought that he could handle any bulls. Nevertheless, they soon got all the cows going in the same direction, and all the cowboys started getting together and getting off of their horses. The camera began to zoom in on them, and there they were, the Sunshine Boys. And right there, with only cows for an audience, they started singing, "Press Along, Cowboy."
This song reads Ruth from the cattle chute. Press along to the big corral. He sure been branded on the snoot. Press along to the big corral. Press along, cowboy, press along with the cowboy yell. Ho, ho. Press along with a noise, big noise, press along to the big corral. We're riding herd on the trail all day. Press along to the big corral. There's lots of work and little play. Press along to the big corral. Press along, cowboy, press along with the cowboy yell. Press along with a noise, big noise, press along to the big corral. Press along to the big corral. Press along to the big corral.
I watched them ride, rope, and shoot for an entire movie day. And then when the movie night started setting in, they all rode into a little wooded area and sat down beside a fire. I guess they were really tired, or else they thought that dying and going to heaven would be better than another day chasing cows and bad guys, because all of a sudden they started singing about riding the range in heaven.
We're gonna ride.
Yes, we'll ride.
We're gonna ride.
Yes, we'll ride. We're gonna ride on the golden range in the sky.
There's a roundup at the settle sun when all our work down here is done.
We'll ride on the golden range by and by.
We are looking forward to the meeting at that heavenly ranch up in the sky. And we hope the big boss man will greet us in his own corral someday on high.
We're gonna ride.
Yes, we'll ride.
We're gonna ride.
Yes, we'll ride. We're gonna ride on the golden range in the sky.
There's a roundup at the settled sun when all our work down here is done.
We'll ride on the golden range by and by, by and by, by and by, by and by.
I discovered an indisputable truth that day. A movie doesn't seem to last nearly as long as a Sunday morning sermon when you're a kid. When the movie was over, me and old Rudy got back on his bicycle and headed back to Grandmama's house. And until now, Daddy never knew. In 1954, Daddy accepted a position at a larger church and we moved to Miami, Florida. We had us a big new house in a big city, and I thought Daddy had truly hit the big time. Neither of us knew that Uncle Jake really was about to hit it big. That year there had been a tragic accident in the lives of the Blackwood brothers, in which their bass singer Bill Lyles and their baritone singer R.W. Blackwood had both been killed in a plane crash. The Blackwood brothers at that time were the nation's #1 gospel quartet, and it took a while for the trauma of the accident to subside. But when it did, James asked Uncle Jake to come join the Blackwood brothers. Well, that was the beginning of JD Sumner, the world's lowest bass singer. This new bunch of guys, Bill Shaw, Jackie Marshall, James Blackwood, along with Cecil Blackwood, James' nephew, and my Uncle JD, all headed for Birmingham to do their first appointment together. Once they got there, they saw the marquee, and up on the marquee it read, "The world-famous Blackwood brothers with the world's lowest bass singer, JD Sumner." And from that time on, that was the way JD was billed. Now, you want to hear a non-secret? He really was, and he had to prove it at every performance. But then came 1984. In that year, it became a documented fact. I used to get a real laugh when I'd go to a Masters 5 concert and hear Hovey and JD discuss the documentation.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, you've been privileged to sit in the presence of, to listen to, and to enjoy the world's undisputed, absolute lowest bass singer.
And he's telling the truth. Yes, he is.
Now, not only is he the world's lowest bass singer, he's the world's greatest bass singer.
He's telling the truth.
I wouldn't sing and tell you that he was the world's lowest bass singer if I didn't have some written proof of it. And I'm sure that with a nice crowd like this, that all of you have heard of a book called the Guinness Book of World Records. Perhaps you have a copy of the 1984 edition of that book. And if you do, tonight when you get home, if you'll turn over to page
33. 33. Right between 32 and 34. 33. Set right in there. 33. So you pass 32.
Page 33. JD Sumner of Nashville, Tennessee, on the song Blessed Assurance, sings a double low C. That's just 2 notes from the ending of the beginning.
Another hand, please.
Now, the note that Hovey was talking about comes at the end of the first verse on the word Spirit in the line filled with the Spirit. Now, my name never did get in the Guinness Book of World Records, but my voice, well, it was on the record that got in the Book of Guinness.
Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine, heir of salvation, purchased of God, filled with His Spirit, washed in His blood.
This is my story. This is my song. This is my song. Praising my Savior all the day long. All the day long.
Ever since I was a teenager, I've always had a recorder of some kind, and I never went to a JD concert without taking my recorder with me. When I joined the Stamps, I continued to take my recorder with me, and I recorded all the concerts every night so we could hear what we were doing wrong. And still, after all these years, I have stacks of vintage gospel music. How'd you like to go back to the 1959 National Quartet Convention? That was my first time to ever be at the big one, and every time I got a glimpse of JD walking around or singing on stage, I'd just have to tell somebody, that's my Uncle Jake. As always, my grandmother, my granddaddy, and my Aunt Bee were all there. That year, I stood only 6'2", But when JD called us all on stage to introduce us, I'm sure I must have been at least 7'4". He called us all by name that night, but when he got to Granddaddy, he got on a roll.
I'm proud of Daddy. He's not ashamed of it, and I'm not. My daddy can't even write his name, but he's the greatest daddy in the world. He's a man that earned his living with his hands, and I've never done without a thing in the world. He's worked very hard. My daddy used to go pick fruit at 4 o'clock and get back at 11. I've gone a complete winter and never seen him. But God bless his heart, he's done a good job because he raised a good bass singer. Thank you.
I thank JD, thank God of JD and Sumner. I'm very thankful for what JD said, and I appreciate him very much too. And I appreciate everything.
Uncle Jake sure did love Grandmama and Granddaddy. When I was with the Stamps Quartet, I've heard JD talk about his childhood hundreds of times. He'd usually talk about his mama praying and how hard his daddy had to work when he was a kid. And then most of the time, he would close out by singing, "These Hands."
These hands ain't the hands of a gentleman. These hands are calloused and old. These hands raised a family. These hands made a home. Now these hands I raise to praise the Lord. These hands won the heart of my loved one, and with her they are never alone. If these hands do their task, what more could one ask? For these fingers have worked to the bone. Now I'm tired and I'm old, and I ain't got much gold. Maybe things ain't all that I planned. God above, hear my plea when it's time to judge me. Take a look at these hard working hands.
By the time 1957 rolled around, the Blackwood brothers had really become famous nationwide, and they had their own syndicated radio program originating from XERB in Des Moines, Iowa. The manager of XERB, the mother station, because the Blackwood brothers were on the air twice a day, asked them to make some commercial spots to advertise their program in that market. Then all through the day, the radio DJs would play these spots to advertise the upcoming Blackwood radio program. Now, if I'd been driving through the streets of Des Moines back in those days and heard this come on my radio, I would have probably changed all my schedules just so I could have heard the program.
We are the Blackwood Brothers Bar, asking you to open the door for an evening ahead of inspiration from
XERB
the gospel station XERB 1090.
Can you imagine waking up on a Des Moines morning a number of years back, getting a cup of coffee, sitting down at the breakfast table, turning on the radio, and suddenly hearing of a program coming on in just a few minutes? Knowing me, I'd probably have dressed real quick and hurried right back to the radio so I didn't miss whatever program this was.
Start the day the religious way. The 1090 spot will help you pray. Stay close to God the whole day long with
XERB's
gospel and song. XERB 1090.
I guess that by now you've determined that JD wrote those, because in both of them he had at least one solo line. Now I've got lots of those on file, but I never got to hear the program aired on XERB because I was living a long way off in Miami, Florida. My only access to the program was through the 50,000 watt Clear Channel AM station in Cincinnati, Ohio, WCKY. The XERB program was daily, but the syndicated program was only aired on Sunday at 12:30. I couldn't hardly wait for Daddy to get through preaching on Sunday morning, 'cause I sure didn't want to miss a single minute of Uncle Jake, not even the theme song.
We're glad you tuned us in for gospel music at its best. Relax and take it easy and let us do the rest. If you will let us know, we'll sing what you want to hear. Then you'll be glad you tuned us in and hold us stay so dear.
And as the announcer would give all the usual sponsors and other trivia, Jackie Marshall would take off on the piano. I thought at the time he was better than Liberace, and I decided way back then I'm going to play just like that someday, and I almost did.
This is your gospel song.
I can't tell you how many chicken legs I've eaten and how many turnip greens I never ate while we all chowed down on our Sunday dinner listening to the Blackwood brothers on the radio.
It's like a river so gently 'tis flowing, how sweet to my soul is this marvelous peace. Sweeter and sweeter each day is growing, like billows of glory it never shall cease.
Filled with the Spirit, I am so happy and glad. Jesus has given wonderful peace. Glory forever to Jesus, my Savior, for wonderful, marvelous, heavenly peace. Peace overflowing, much sweeter is growing.
What wonderful peace.
Sweet peace.
stranger traveling through this weary summer land. I've got a home in that yonder city, good Lord.
And I know,
good Lordy, then I know it'd take me home.
Lord, take me home.
Usually I was just wiping the grease off my face, or if I had eaten fast, Mama was making my sister Sharon and I do the dishes. But it didn't matter, because I knew that a nap was the next thing in order when I began to hear the Blackwood Brothers outro. But just to put off the nap a little bit longer, I always waited till the very last note was over.
We're sorry that it's over. Our time has come and gone. We hope we've made you happy and you don't feel alone. We're here because you listen. We hope we brought you cheer. Don't touch that dial for just a while. You hold this day so dear.
While the announcer talked and Jackie began to play them off the air, I would suddenly turn into another person. I hated to take naps. My, how times change. I'm old now, and naps have become one of the few things that I can still do as good as I used to. Now, I don't know if it was the radio programs, the personal appearances, or their records, but suddenly the Blackwoods were what they call in the industry super hot. Back in those days, there was an advertising company known as Worth Enterprises, and they would hire well-known musical acts to record radio commercials for them. They'd put them on an unusual disc. It was a 15-inch disc, 15.5 RPM, and most all of the radio stations of the time subscribed to the Worth transcriptions. All the cuts were generic in content because most of the local stations in those days had only spoken commercials, and the DJs would use these transcriptions as a musical intro to what they had to say. Well, because of their national attention, Worth Enterprises hired the Blackwoods to write and record a number of spots for their use. For instance, it's about 1958. You're somewhere, USA. You're the DJ on duty and you're about to tell about a big sale at the local car dealer. Well, just before you give the details, you'd probably reach over and grab the Worth transcription with the Blackwoods singing a car dealer song.
If you're looking for a good used car for the family,
Then don't fuss, just see us.
for yourself you'll see. Our customers are kings and queens and they are never wrong.
Then you can say what a happy day.
As you drive along.
Not everyone could afford a car. Lots of folks shop down at their local bargain store.
Dollar sale is the reason.
You can save more for this season. Hurry down, be first in line. Our dollar sale is 95.
There was probably lots of folks just like me that didn't have a dollar. No problem. Let's work up a trade. How about it?
If you got something that you want to swap down at our trade post, well, you see, we got somebody that needs it. Then you can go around and boast. Why, man, I traded something I didn't need for something I need. Now I'm what you call a trader.
I throw away my trade.
You might have been driving down the road when all of a sudden your kid hollered, "What time is it?" Good news. You're about to find out.
Take a minute,
Look at your watch.
it's important.
Believe it or not,
Be unique, stay in line.
I'm going to give you.
The correct time.
Before you got out of bed some morning, you might want to turn on the radio for a weather check.
Oh, no, weatherman, it looks rainy.
And it's mighty cold. That's right, man, look out for ice
It's going to be slippery.
on the road.
If you like moisture in the air, but not frozen, the radio could make your day.
Hey, about the weather,
What about it?
this news we bring.
You can bet it's gonna be wet.
Carry your raincoat, it's gonna rain.
In every life, there's going to be some rain and there's going to be some chills. But rest assured, summer always comes.
Listen in, I'll tell you what.
Don't you plan to do a lot?
Find yourself a shady spot, 'cause today it will be hot.
You can only listen to the same station for so long. Then at some point, you're going to have to turn the dial. If you're lucky, you'll hear something that catches your ear.
We're gonna play country music. Drop us a line, your tune will do. Tune your dial this way all through the day, and we'll play country music for you. And we'll play country music for you.
Now you know what a worth transcription is. And all the ones that the Blackwood brothers recorded, JD wrote them. You can tell that due to the fact that every one of them has a line for Uncle Jake. JD was a very gifted songwriter, and he started writing for himself when he was with the Sunshine Boys because songs for bass singers back then were kind of rare. As a matter of fact, JD wrote the first 2 songs he recorded with the Sunshine Boys. Jesus is going to hit like an atom bomb and working in a sawmill for Jesus, and they both featured him. But his real writing career got started when he joined the Blackwood brothers. They released 59 records on RCA during JD's tenure, and each of them held 10 or 12 songs. And would you believe that JD wrote the majority of them? If you listen to their entire collection, you'd find yourself hearing Uncle Jake a lot. Years later, after JD had joined the Masters 5, Hovey Lister would talk about JD's songwriting at some point in every concert.
He's written over 500 songs. More than 400 of them have been recorded. That's a record within itself. And when I think about songs he's written like Guide Me, Keep Me, I Can Feel the Touch of His Hand, or when I turn the television on Sunday morning and hear a great choir singing the song he wrote called The Old Country Church, the thought occurs to me that long after he has sung his last double OC, those songs will live on and on to bless the hearts of men and women.
When it comes right down to it, that's really what JD wanted most from his writings. He wanted folks to be touched by the words he had written. Shortly before he passed away, we were sitting around talking like old people do, and we were talking about what we would like to leave behind us when we're gone. After all the funny things that we could think about, Uncle Jake got real serious, and he said, "Duck," that's what he always called me, "I really don't care if they play me singing on the radio, because they're going to eventually get tired of all my low C's. But I would sure die a happy man if I could know for certain that somebody, somewhere, sometime would be singing the songs that I wrote." He said, "My voice is going to get bad and my records are going to break, but maybe the words in one of my songs will bless somebody years after I'm gone. And I tell you right now, if they leave it up to me, I'm going to do everything in my power to see that the words Uncle Jake penned are heard for as many days as God grants me breath." JD wrote all styles of gospel music, but his signatory effort came with the writing of The Old Country Church. I think I'll let Wally Varner, the piano player for the Blackwood brothers, tell you how it came to be.
I remember one night we were headed for Dayton, Ohio. You had James and Bill and Cecil up front trying to put together some old hymns to come up with a medley that would really make a hit. And little did I know when we got to Dayton that night and we used that song for the first time that we would have to sing The Old Country Church 5 times.
I started singing it when I was with the Stamps Quartet, but JD kept singing it until his last concert. When I listened to me with the original Stamps, JD with the Masters 5, and then JD with the final Stamps, all singing it back to back, I'm amazed at the close resemblance.
Oh, I'd like to go back to that old country church to hear the songs of praise. How the people would sing, it would make the rafters ring at that old country church. Shall we gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river? Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God.
Oh, I'll never forget at that old country church how the glory of the Lord came down. And And the children would smile as they shouted down the aisle of that old country church. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore.
Now the years have gone by and so many have died. And that old country church, but they're on the other shore. Will they sing forevermore as they did at that old country church? Oh, I'm redeemed. I'm redeemed. My lucky find. Christ is mine. Christ is mine. All to Him I now resign. I hope I've been redeemed at that old country church.
Oh, yeah. I've sung that song 1,000 times and loved every minute of it. In 1958, I had an uncle living down in Melbourne, Florida. We called him Uncle Tiny, and he was a collector of fancy toys. And he had just bought himself a brand new toy, a reel-to-reel tape recorder. His old recorder had been a wire recorder. They don't even exist anymore. But on that recorder, the music was recorded on a real thin wire. Having just purchased the latest mode of recording, Uncle Tiny gave me his old wire recorder. And it just so happened I had it with me the same year in the armory at Crisfield, Maryland, when the Blackwood brothers came into town to do a concert for my daddy. And that's where I got the chance to record Uncle Jake for the very first time. Over the years, I recorded JD in churches, auditoriums, and recording studios all over the country. But that night, I was able to record a brand new song that Uncle Jake had just written that wasn't even out on a record yet. And after JD left the Blackwood brothers, he recorded it again with both the Masters 5 and the Stamps. I couldn't believe how close my old wire recording resembled the same song as I produced it years later for the Stamps Quartet.
There is a light that shines through the night. It is Jesus. He lights the way for me.
Since I knelt and found my Savior,
Leads me on to heaven. I hope there's a light.
each shining
Bright for me.
There's a light
There is a light
shining for me
shining just for me.
all along my way.
All along my way,
I can clearly see.
I can clearly see.
I have no fear.
Lord, I have no fear.
Though it's dark and dreary,
Though it's dark and
there's a light.
it's shining bright for me.
That sure was a memorable March evening in 1958. I really got to play big shot that night because JD was my uncle. James was in rare form that night too. I guess it was probably because JD was my daddy's brother and James was working for my daddy. But nevertheless, he gave Uncle Jake a little special attention during the introductions that night.
I try to explain this the best I can. People usually have a lot of questions about him. One of the first is how tall is he? He's 6 feet 5 inches tall, 132 pounds.
But it ain't a dab of his bad.
We call him the world's lowest bass singer, and from some of the low notes he gets down to sometimes, I think he must be hollow plumb down the end of his number 13 shoes. If it wasn't so much of him turned down for foot, he would be tall. Comes from way down the state of Florida, and his name is JD Sumner.
I can't rightly recall exactly what I was doing at the close of that intro, but in all probability, I was standing beside somebody and turned to them with a silly grin on my face and said, "That's my Uncle Jake." But I do know for certain that of all the folks that have sung Rock of Ages through the years, nobody before or after could sing it as low as JD.
Complete and save your head. No work to do, oh blessed day. So drive my weary spirit to that happy land beyond the blue.
Drop it down about a gear or two. I just want to see if there's a note lower than that on the piano. Last one, huh? JD Sumner, ladies and gentlemen.
That's low, boys and girls. To To those of us old enough to remember the days of quartet long play records, on that same song, within a few months after that night, JD had an experience in California that involved his childhood buddy and lifelong friend, Big Chief Wetherington, the bass singer for the Statesman Quartet.
He has gone and is preparing me a mansion over there. Just inside the pearly sea. Bless its heart. When I said bless its heart, I thought it was a baby crying. It was Big Chief.
Well, boys and girls, that's about all we got time for here. If you'd like to hear more of my story, just change disc, okay? JD, without a doubt, was the greatest quartet bass of all time. But in my opinion, some of his prettiest singing was when he would sing an old hymn right by himself.
There's a land that is fairer than day, and by faith we can see it afar. For the Father waits over the way to prepare us a dwelling place there. How sweet and happy seems those days of which I dream, when memory recalls them now and then, and with what rapture sweet my weary heart would be if I could hear my mother pray again. Precious Father, loving Mother, fly across the lonely and old home scenes of my childhood in fond memory they appear. When we see Jesus coming in glory, when he
If the world from you withholds all its silver and its gold, and you have to get on meager fare, just remember in his word how he feeds the little bird. Just take your burden to the Lord and leave them there. Ask me not, O gentle Savior, hear my humble cry.
JD and James owned several music companies. One of them was the Stamps Quartet Music and Printing Company. They had put together for that company a new touring group called the New Stamps Quartet. Well, in 1965, JD left the Blackwood brothers and joined the Stamps Quartet as their manager. At the same time, I was working for Uncle Jake from the home office in Dallas, Texas, and had a group known as the Stamps Trio. Right after JD joined the Stamps Quartet, he asked me to move to Memphis and become a member of his quartet. On September the 5th, 1965, my lifelong dream came true. I did my first quartet concert with my Uncle Jake, and again I had my tape recorder. I've listened to that performance a lot, and things went pretty good until it came time for the song Rainbow of Love. That was the first song that night that old Donnie had a chance to have a solo line. Needless to say, during my first line of There's a Rainbow, the word rainbow got stuck somewhere between north and south. But when you add the Masters 5 live and the Stamps Quartet live, it all seems to come out okay in the end.
Shining every day, all along the way, there's a rainbow, there's a rainbow of perfect love on the land and sea, shines for you and me. There's a rainbow, there's a rainbow of love.
There's a rainbow of love pointing to heaven above, shining through every cloud. There's a rainbow of love. When we cross the tide to the other side, there's a rainbow. There's a rainbow of perfect love on the land and sea, shines for you and me. There's a rainbow. There's a rainbow of love. There's a shining through every cloud.
Oh yeah, boys and girls. I'm telling you, I was sure excited that night. And to be honest with you, the excitement hasn't lessened any through the years. Now, when I started with the Stamps, I was both the piano player and the lead singer, and though it sounded fairly good, it just didn't look right in those days for the lead singer to be sitting down at the piano. So Uncle Jake decided to hire us a piano player. Well, what he found was a cute little teenager who was playing for the Cloud Indian family out of Atlanta, Georgia. Tony Brown was his name, and he was an excellent addition to the Stamps. Not only was Tony single and handsome, he was also a great musician. And in addition to these qualities, he was one of the funniest little guys I ever knew. Within just a few days after Tony joined us, it got to be a regular routine for Tony just to get up anytime he felt like it and pull something funny on Uncle Jake.
JD, if I had been the first man on the moon, would you have been proud of me? Would you, JD?
I would have been proud of you, but it's over. But you wouldn't have gone.
I would have, but they done gone, so JD, I'm going to be the first man on the sun. I am, JD.
It's too hot to go to the sun.
I done figured all that out.
You figured out how you're going to the sun? All right, how you going?
I'm going to go at night.
I never have figured out where he got all those crazy things. I don't know if he saw them on television or he read them in a book. I just don't know. But I do know he very seldom ever used the same one twice.
Okay. Hey, Jay. I found out something.
I'd love to know it. What is it?
You got to do something about your friend. No, JD, did you know that 1 out of every 4 people in the world's crazy?
That's not so. No, you're wrong.
So I can show how it works.
You can prove that 1 out of 4 is crazy. All right, prove it.
Okay. Have you got 3 friends?
I think maybe I have, yes.
JD, think real seriously about all 3 of them friends and tell me if you think all 3 of them's all right. You know what I mean?
Now look, son, you may think you're cute. You can depend that all 3 of my friends are all right. They're all okay.
Then you're the one.
Got you again, JD. That had to be the funniest looking duo that ever stood on a gospel stage. JD stood about 6'6" and Tony stood about 5'6", and I'm telling you, they were something to behold.
Did you see my new automatic watch?
Your what?
Automatic watch.
What makes it automatic?
You don't ever have to water it.
You don't have to water it. Why?
It's got its own spring.
Those were the good old days, boys and girls. Tony finally grew up, went with the Oak Ridge Boys, and when I left the Stamps to join Elvis with my new group called Voice Incorporated, I hired Tony to be my piano player. And he remained there after I left and became Elvis's piano player. And when Elvis passed away, Tony came back to Nashville and became one of Nashville's leading musical executives. In JD's later years, he said if he had known Tony was going to grow up to be what he was, he'd have spent a lot more time with him when he was with the Stamps Quartet. Well, when Tony left, JD was left all alone, and he had no shortage of funny stuff himself. And one of the very main things he liked to pick on stage was my Aunt Mary.
We went to California about 13 years ago when I was with the Blackwood Brothers Quartet. We each drove our own car, took our wives and our kids to California. We stayed in Hollywood and worked out of Hollywood for about a week. One night we weren't working. Me and my wife was out riding around. She looked over at me and she said, "Honey, will you love me when I'm old and gray?" I looked back at her and I said, "I reckon so. Darling, I've loved you through 2 or 3 shades already."
Poor Aunt Mary, bless her heart. JD always reserved this one for those nights when Aunt Mary was there live in person and he could have her stand up at the end of it.
My wife is a wonderful person, though. Seriously, she is a wonderful wife. Even after 27 years, I still call my wife Angel. Most men, after they're married 6 months, they are calling their wives everything but Angel. But I still call my wife Angel because I really believe that she is an angel. Or at least she acts like one. She's always up in the air harping about something.
I doubt there's a story that JD has ever told that I haven't heard dozens of times. And when I hear one again these days, it's still just as funny as it was the first time I ever heard it. Now, JD wasn't serious very often in public, but in all honesty, he was one of the most tender-hearted men I've ever known.
People often wonder why I'm so silly and cut up so much. It's because when I get just that much serious, I start crying. And I'm a big-looking idiot when I start crying. And I hate to do it, but I've been blessed. I mean, I have been blessed in my life. I don't know of any, I wouldn't change JD Sumner for anybody in the world, for the friends I've had and the gospel music. I've had an opportunity to take gospel music to a lot of places other people have not. And you can bet that gospel music is my life.
Uncle Jake was not only a very soft-hearted gentleman, but he was also extremely giving and a very generous person. I've heard it said of him many times that old JD would give you the shirt off his back. Just so you'll not have to take my word alone for this fact, I'll let Jake Hess, one of JD's closest friends, tell you a story in his own words.
In 1968, I had a heart attack, and my insurance had lapsed the day before. And JD, know how he did it. He got me reinstated. He left, went to the quartet convention, got up on the stage, and just before intermission said, "Now, you people out there think we're rich." Said, "You see this suit? It costs $300. This shirt costs $45. My shoes cost $100. Said, "I've got on the raggedest drawers you've ever seen." He said, "Now, you have always wanted us to look good." Said, "Now, how many of you here tonight love Jake Hess?" Said, "How many of you here tonight would buy his dinner?" He said, "Jake's not here." Said, "He's in the hospital and he's broke, flat broke. So those of you that would like to buy Jake's dinner, here's your opportunity." He took up an offering. When he came home in a couple of days, he came in my room and he poured out $5,800.
JD had the unusual ability to take a very serious moment and right in the middle of it, change the whole mood by saying something really funny. A good example of what I'm talking about happened one night when he was feeling very sentimental and was on stage talking about Jake Hess.
I've had a wonderful life. I tried hard, and I was living in a low-rent housing project, paying $22 a month for rent. Jake Hess is the reason I got a chance to go with the Blackwood brothers, and it was a fantastic thing in my life. And then from there to the Stamps Quartet, and having the privilege once again to tie up with my old buddy Jake Hess. While the manager used to be filling up the old Dodge that we rode in, me and Jake went inside and seen who could steal the most out of the filling station. These two great Christian gospel singers. And Jake always won. That's what bothered me.
I sure enjoyed my days with JD and the Stamps Quartet, and during the time that I was with the Stamps, we had a great number of personnel changes.
Well, we've had some pretty good stars in the Stamps Quartet. Richard Sturbin, bass singer with the Oak Ridge Boys, sang bass with us for a while. And then Larry Strickland, who married Naomi Judd, he sang with the quartet for a while. And one of the biggest men in the music industry is Tony Brown. He played for the Stamps Quartet. And then Dave Rowland of Dave and Sugar sang with us for a while. Everybody that I've ever worked has gone to amount to something but me. We've had some great people, and we are going to have a reunion.
And I can tell you one thing for sure, boys and girls, I'm going to be there right in the middle of it.
And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, "Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them. Upon our journey here below, we meet with pain and loss. Sometimes there is a crown of thorns, sometimes a heavy cross. The dreary road to Calvary, the bitter goad and sting. But what's inside those gates of pearl will be worth everything. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain. And there shall be no night there, and they need no candle, for the Lord God giveth them light.
When we're inside those gates of pearl, we'll learn a lot of things. We'll have a heart that's made of gold,
Perhaps 1,000 strings. We're gonna sing and shout, we'll dance about, the Lamb will dry our tears.
we'll have a grand homecoming week.
The first 10,000 and they shall reign forever and ever.
Another thing I really admired Uncle Jake for was his ability to make a narration come to life. I think I'd be safe in stating that during my years with the Stamps, we never did a concert without a JD recitation at some point during the evening. I've heard him do dozens of them through the years, but if you were to pin me down and ask me which one was my favorite, I'd quickly tell you, the touch of the master's hand.
'Twas battered and scarred, and the auctioneer thought it scarcely worth his while to waste much time on the old violin, but he held it up with a smile. "What am I bid, good folks?" he cried. "Who'll start the bidding for me? $1, $1, then $2, who'll make it $3? $3 once, $3 twice, going for $3. But no, from the room far back, a gray-haired man came forward and picked up the bow, and wiping the dust off the old violin and tightening the loose strings, he played a melody that was pure and sweet as a carolling angel sings. When the music ceased, the auctioneer said in a voice that was soft and low, "What am I bid for the old violin?" And he held it up with a bow. $1,000, $1,000, then $2,000, who'll make it $3? $3,000 once, $3,000 twice, going and gone, said he. The people cheered, and some of them cried and said, "We don't quite understand. What changed its worth?" And a quick reply, "The touch of the master's hand." And many a man whose life is out of tune and is battered and scarred with sin is auctioned cheap to the thoughtless crowd, much like the old violin. Mess of pottage, a glass of wine, a game, and he travels on. He's going once, he's going twice, he's going almost gone. But then the master comes, and the foolish crowd can never quite understand the worth of a soul and the change that's been wrought by the touch of the Master's hand.
JD used to do a narration based upon his favorite verses of Scripture, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard him recite it. But the last time I heard him repeat it, there was no one there but me, and he didn't even know I was listening. Very shortly after his wife, my Aunt Mary, died, Uncle Jake came over to our house for supper. When the meal was ended, he went into the living room, and after a little bit, I started to go into the living room to see if he wanted to go down to the studio and play. It was really quiet in that part of our house, and I heard him talking, and I thought he was talking on a cell phone, but he wasn't. He was sitting on our couch, his head laid back and with his eyes closed, quietly quoting to himself 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16 through 18.
In the sweet by and
We shall meet
on that beautiful shore.
But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that you sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Jesus will God bring with him. For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain unto the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore, comfort one another with these words.
In the sweet by and
We shall meet on that beautiful
JD was a great swing rhythm bass singer, and Roll On Jordan was one of his most requested songs. And I had a chance to sing it with him with the original stamps and then produce it for the final stamps.
roll on, roll on, roll on, roll on.
Oh, roll on, mighty old river to that sweet forever land. Your waves flow gently, guard your shores intently. Someday we must cross your foam.
So roll on, Jordan, roll on, oh river deep and wide. My home is on the other side. And when I
Reach the river, gonna pray the Lord to carry me home.
so roll on, Jordan.
You're the last old river that I've got to span to reach that mountain in the promised land.
Roll on, Jordan.
Roll on, roll on, roll on, roll on, roll on, roll on. Well, roll on, mighty old river to that sweet forever land. Your waves roll gently, God, your shores intently. Someday we must cross your foam. So roll on, Jordan. You're the last old river that I gotta span. Reach my mansion in the promised land. So won't you
roll on, Jordan. Roll
If you recall, I earlier told you about JD being entered in the Guinness Book of World Records for singing the note D below low C. Well, boys and girls, I got a note that he sang that was lower than that. It was while I was with the Stamps, and we were at the old War Memorial Auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee. It was on March the 6th, 1970, and we were singing one of JD's most requested bass songs, Walk That Lonesome Road. And at the end of it, he sang a B flat below a double low C.
I gotta walk, got to walk that lonesome You better be glad you my son-in-law, boy. Whoa, got to walk that lonesome road. I gotta walk, that lonesome road. Walk that lonesome road.
Things seemed to be going really great for the Stamps Quartet in 1970, but it was soon to get much better. In 1971, we had the opportunity to join the Elvis Presley show. Now, I had never met Elvis Presley, but Uncle Jake had.
Elvis lived 2 blocks from the Ellis Auditorium in a low-rent housing project, and he came to our sings that we had once a month. He would come and would get backstage and come around and ask me every question that could be asked anybody about why this and why that, and was more or less a nuisance, answering all the questions. And he kept coming to the sings, and one month he missed. The next time he came back, I said, "Son, where were you last month?" He said, "I didn't have enough money to come to the sing." I said, "Well, from now on, you don't have to have any money. You come to the back door, and I'll let you in for nothing." So from then on, he always came to the back door, and I let Elvis into our sings. And the next thing I knew, he would let me in the back door to his sing.
And I'm telling you, boys and girls, Elvis singings turned out to be a whole bunch different than the singings we were used to. Every night was a brand new adventure, and our first surprise came when we got to Milwaukee for our very first rehearsal with Elvis.
I booked the Stamps Quartet to tour with Elvis, not thinking that I would sing with him, that I'd go along and play golf and do some of the things that I'd always wanted to do. I was sort of thinking about retiring. I was older than Elvis. And I had decided to put another bass singer and work him into the Stamps Quartet. And I had Richard Sturban, who is now with the Oak Ridge Boys, singing bass. And on the programs, I would just sing 2 or 3 songs.
When we got to Milwaukee to rehearse, I was sitting out in front, and Elvis said, "What are you doing sitting out there, JD?" And I said, "Well, I got a bass singer. You don't need me." Elvis said, "I want some of those 56 endings." What he meant by that was, ooh, He wanted me to slur down like he had heard me do in the gospel sings with the Blackwood brothers. And he said, "I got you a mic by yourself. Get up here. You're going to sing too." Well, I had no choice but to sing 7 years.
And for all 7 of those years, there was a regular event that took place every show just before Elvis went to the stage. And it started during that same tour.
On every concert, Elvis would always get there during intermission. The Stamps would sing their part, which was gospel music. Sweet Inspirations would sing. Jackie Kahane was a comedian. Then Elvis would come in. He would always send for the Stamps Quartet and have us sing this song before he went on stage. And I believe it was Elvis's form of worshiping.
There's a sweet, sweet spirit in this place, and I know that it's the Spirit of the Lord. There are sweet expressions on each face, and I know that it's the presence of the Lord. Sweet Holy Spirit, sweet Heavenly Dove, stay right here with us, filling us with your love. And for these blessings, we lift our hearts in praise. Without a doubt, we'll know that we have been revived when we shall leave this
Without exception, we would sing gospel music to Elvis every night for hours, and I do mean hours. Whether it was his dressing room or his living room, His Hand in Mine is one of the songs that Elvis had JD sing a lot.
That song was known to have been the last song that Elvis Presley ever sang. He was over at Ginger Alden's house that night before he passed away. Ginger's mother asked him to sing a song and play the piano. He sat down at the piano and sang this song. You may ask me how I know my God is real. You may doubt the things I say and doubt the way that I feel, but I know He's real today. He'll always be. I can feel His hand
enough for me. I will never walk alone. He holds my hand. He will guide each step I take, and if I fall, I know he'll understand. Till the day he tells me why he loves me so. I can feel his hand in mine, that's all I need to know. I will never walk alone. He holds my hand. He will guide each step I take, and if I fall, I know he'll understand. Till the day he tells me why he loves me so. I can feel his hand in mine, that's all I need to know.
From that first tour in '71 until Elvis' last performance in 1977, the Stamps were on every record and every show that Elvis did, and they became a more and more integral part of the show, and JD, well, he grew closer and closer to Elvis as a personal friend. And then came August the 16th, 1977. I, along with the whole world, experienced a great loss when my friend Elvis passed away. But I don't know of anyone who was more devastated than my Uncle J.D.
I, like everybody else, thought that Elvis Presley could not die. So I thought this was either something that the Colonel had come up with, or either Vernon, Elvis's dad, was dead. Elvis had given me a limousine, and I had my bus driver to get that limousine, and he drove to Memphis. When I got to Elvis Presley Boulevard, the crowd was all in the streets and the police was there, and I could see something was drastically wrong. As soon as it was known, I guess, that I was there, well, Vernon sent for me, so I went in, and Vernon, of course, was very much torn up. Vernon said, I want you to handle the funeral for me. He said, you know more about what he would like to have sung than I would, and who he'd like to preach than I would. So if you would, you get whatever you think that Elvis would like to have done and sang, and you handle the funeral. I said, yes, sir. I went back to the hotel, and it was late at night, and I called the Cathedral of Tomorrow and told them who I was, told them to get me Rex Humbard's number, and I called Rex. And Rex came down and preached Elvis's funeral. I had James Blackwood to sing How Great Thou Art, and the Stamps, just like Elvis sung it. And Joe Gershio was there at the funeral. He said, let me direct it one last time for the man.
Oh Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the roaring thunder, thy power through out this old universe display. When Christ shall come with shout of acclamation to take me home, what joy shall fill my heart? Then I will bow in humble adoration and there proclaim, oh my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art. How great thou art. How great thou art. How great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art. How great thou
Shortly after Elvis passed away in 1977, the director of Graceland in Memphis called JD and told him this story. The morning they went upstairs to retrieve the body of Elvis, his little portable record player was sitting on a chair in the corner of the room and was still turning. On the turntable was a record of the Stamps Quartet. The very last cut on the upside was a song that Uncle Jake and I had written back in '72. He told JD that they were going to leave it right there where it was for all time, because in all probability, the last gospel song that Elvis ever heard was the touch of his hand.
My cup runneth over, my strength is renewed. Though it seems total darkness for me, thy rod and thy staff bring me comfort. At the end there is victory for me. There's a place where I go to be alone with Jesus when my burden seems so heavy to bear. Oh, what strength I find in my trial, and what victory in times of despair. Surely goodness and mercy is mine with him. On his word I firmly now stand. Though I walk through the valley with a heavy burden, I can feel the touch of his hand. Though I
when Elvis passed away in 77. I had already left the professional entertainment circuit and for the last 11 months had been involved in Christian ministry. But JD continued on with the Stamps until 1980. It was then that he decided he was going to retire and get completely off the road. It didn't take Uncle Jake very long to retire, and one morning he called a bunch of his old buddies together, and shortly thereafter he organized the Masters 5 Quartet. Now JD's version of the Masters 5 initiative is better explained by JD himself.
People ask me why I broke up the Stamps Quartet. I left the Blackwood brothers in '65 and took over the Stamps Quartet. Kept them going until November 1980. And I broke them up. People want to know why. I was sick of them. I'd been married to my wife for 4 years. Never had stayed home with my wife. I wanted to stay home with my wife bad. I stayed home with my wife for 2 weeks and I got sick of her.
Only Uncle Jake could get by with that. Now the Masters 5 boys and girls, that was a quartet. All of them were some of the greatest that have ever been. Rosie Roselle, James Blackwood, Hovey Lister, and the gentleman that JD had started singing with in 1945, Mr. Jake Hess. In the 80s, most quartets had big bands, but not the Masters 5. Hovey Lister was the only band they needed. You talk about traditional Southern gospel, the Masters 5 made traditional a household word.
Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a feather on the waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Jesus washed my sins away one glorious morning.
Praise His name.
He blessed my soul.
He blessed my soul and He made me whole, and He made me whole.
Ever since that happy day, I'm telling the story.
Praise His name.
How He washed my sins away when He blessed my soul, when He blessed my soul. Oh, dear brother, when the world's on fire, don't you want God's bosom to be your pillow? Hide me over in the rock of ages, rock of ages, left for me. That blessed morning
When the
of
love
the Lord came down
into my soul,
into my soul, and He made me whole, and He made me whole.
if you'd have been there
You shall have brought me
to the
to
land,
my Lord and King.
well, you ought to have been there.
Yes, you ought to have been there
When He blessed my soul.
when He blessed my soul. Oh, it's a great, great morning, your first day in heaven when you stroll down the Golden Avenue. There are mansions left and right, and you thrill every sight, and the saints always smiling, saying, how do you do? It's a great, great morning, that first day in heaven when you realize your worried days are through. You'll be glad you were not idle, your time to read the Bible. It's a great, great morning for you. I had a dream and I confess I hated to awake. He dreamt he was an angel at the great pearly gate. St. Peter said, why, hello there, where have you been? We've got your mansion ready, so come right in.
And then he ran for an angel to that music again.
He spread his wings a time or two and learned how to fly.
Oh, it's a great, great morning, that first day in heaven, when you realize your worrying days are through. You'll be glad we're not idle, the time read the Bible. It's a great morning, a great morning. What a happy day.
Everybody gonna have a little bit of glory. Everybody gonna be singing that story. Everybody gonna have a wonderful time up there. Well, it's glory, hallelujah, brother, there's a reckoning coming in the morning. Better get you ready, 'cause I'm giving you the warning. Everybody gonna have a wonderful time up there. Well, everybody gonna have a little bit of glory. Everybody gonna be singing that story. Everybody gonna have a wonderful time up there. Well, it's glory, hallelujah, brother, there's a reckoning coming in the morning. Better get you ready, 'cause I'm giving you the warning. Everybody gonna have a wonderful time up there. Brother, there's a reckoning coming in the morning. Better get you ready, 'cause I'm giving you the warning. Everybody gonna have a wonderful time up there.
In 1990, I had a full-service recording studio in Destin, Florida, and I decided to move to Nashville and build a studio here. For a short while, I found myself living in a one-bedroom apartment in Hendersonville, Tennessee, just north of Nashville. Just as I got moved into my apartment, JD had a personnel change and wanted me to record him what they called back in those days a 3-for-5 special. The only equipment I had in the apartment was a small Akai 1212 multitrack, and I had one MIDI keyboard. But when JD wants something, buddy, he wants it now. So I wound up recording 24 songs for Uncle Jake in the Stamps right there in the living room. The other tenants got real familiar with the Stamps and was glad when the project was over. I think it's kind of fascinating, though, that years later I would record one of those same songs with JD, my brother, and my son all singing together as a family.
I am going to that city far beyond the sky. I have made my reservation for my home on high. My soul was bought at Calvary by the Father's only Son. And he'll have my mansion ready when my work is done.
Soon my mansion will be ready, I'll be going home. Never more to be discouraged, never more to roam. And on some happy morning, when the dead in Christ shall rise, and I go to meet my Lord over yonder in the sky.
God made a way for me beyond the crystal sea. He's coming back someday. He's gonna take me home to stay. I'll live forevermore all along that golden shore. Oh, what a wonderful happy day.
God made a marvelous, infinite, beautiful, glorious, wonderful, happy day. God made a way.
If JD had not passed away in 1998, in January of 1999, that was to be the sound of the new Stamps Quartet. But with his homegoing, the sound of the Stamps Quartet was forever silenced. Now all I have are my memories, some pictures, a few awards, and lots of audio files. I sure am glad that among all of my recorded memories, I have some of Uncle Jake and I singing together.
Time is filled with swift transition. Lord of earth, unmoved can stand. Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand.
Friend, just hold to his God's unchanging hand. Yeah, hold to his God's unchanging hand. You gotta build your hopes on things eternal, and hold to his God's unchanging hand.
the years may hold, I'm gonna be at home with Jesus while eternal ages roll.
Friend, let's hold to God's unchanging hand. Yeah, hold to God's unchanging hand. Let's build our hopes on things eternal, and hold to
God's unchanging hand.
Through the years, JD wrote a lot of great gospel songs. But if anyone asks me which one is his best, I quickly tell them, Lord, teach me how to pray. And I had the joy of singing it with both the original stamps and the final stamps.
Lord, teach me how to pray, that I might see. Lord, teach me what to say, and set me free, that I may ever go at your command. Lord, teach me how to walk and hold your hand.
Lord, teach me how to wait down on my knees, that I may know that you have heard my plea. Lord, teach me how to use my life for thee. Lord, teach me how to help the lost to see.
Let not my will, but thine be done, and more like Jesus be. Lord, let me walk with thee each day. Lord, teach me how to
The world knew JD as a great songwriter, the world's lowest bass singer, and a terrific quartet man. But I remember him as a man that loved people. It didn't seem like he could get enough of just helping folks. In jest, he bragged a lot about his bass voice, and he complimented himself on his handsome looks. But I never did hear him say anything about all the people that he had helped through the years, and there were countless numbers of them. Far greater than his love for gospel music or the personal gratification he received from a live audience. In his heart, his joy was knowing that someone was better off because his living had touched theirs.
If I can have somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or a song, if I can show somebody where they're traveling alone, then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall
be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody as I pass alone, then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. No, my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody as I pass alone, then my living shall not be in vain.
In 1998, my uncle, JD Sumner, the father of the National Quartet Convention, made his last appearance at the function he had created back in 1957, and I was there. At the end of the Stamp segment, they left the stage with a thunderous ovation and came back on stage to do an encore. JD walked over and sat down on the piano bench, and he began to introduce what would be his last solo at the National Quartet Convention. He said to the audience, "I've been singing gospel music for over 50 years, and I've never worn my spiritual values on my coat sleeve. But I'm old now, and so are most of you. And if you've ever wondered about me and the good Lord, then this song is especially for you." And then he sang for his last big audience, "God Still Lives in This Old House."
If this earthly tabernacle should be dissolved today, I'd trade it for a finer one that would not pass away. But till the day arrives when it's time for moving out, 'tis such sweet peace to know the Lord still lives in this old house. The sweetest fellowship I've known has fortified these walls, and peace has reigned since he's been walking up and down these halls, with snow upon the rooftop now, and these hinges near worn out. It's such a joy to know the Lord still lives in this old house. To him it's been a dwelling place, where he kept my hand in his. To me a home away from home is all it really is. It sure ain't fine and fancy, and all I can boast about is after all these years the Lord still lives in this old house. Now there were times he had the right just to up and move away. And there were times and days I knew it took God's amazing grace to stay. But he never left this old building once. That's why I can sing and shout, 'cause after all these years the Lord still lives in this old house. To him it's been a dwelling place where he kept my hand in his. To me a home away from home is all it really is. And it sure ain't fine and fancy, and all that I can boast about is after all the years the Lord still lives in this old house.
All of my life, JD has had the #1 spot in my personal Hall of Fame. But in 1984, he was officially inducted into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. And for as long as time shall exist, he will remain JD Sumner, the world's lowest bass singer, and my Uncle Jake.
Time has made a change since my childhood days. Many of my loved ones have gone away. Some in this life I may never see. Time has made a change in me. When I was a boy, I was well and strong. I could climb the hillside all day long. I am not today what I used to be. Time has made a change in me.
I'm quite a bit older now, and one thing's for sure. I don't have nearly as much time before me as that which lies behind me. And through the years, I've created a lot of memories with JD. Some of them I gladly share with all who might be interested. Some of them, well, we just talk about them in family circles. And then some, well, they just won't be recalled again until me and Uncle Jake can laugh at them together one more time. Through it all, the good and the bad, the happy and the sad, through all the ups as well as the downs, I can truly say I've been a blessed man. Every day of my life, I thank God for giving me the privilege of having Russell and Nell Sumner as my mama and daddy, and for giving me JD Sumner for an uncle, and for giving me friends all across the country, just like you. But most of all, I thank God for the hope of spending an endless eternity in the heaven that He has personally prepared for us all.
If I had no more blessings in store, I'd never ask or wonder why. And if I died today, I could honestly say I've had a wonderful life. Yes, I've had a wonderful